Good morning, everybody. This is Cassie Stumo. I'm the marketing specialist here at EAC. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar. We'll start off today with an intro of EAC, and then PTC's technical specialist, Cody Wiltrout, will show us how to create powerful illustrations and animations with Creo Illustrate. There will be a short survey that will appear once the webinar is over, so just hang tight for a bit so you get to answer those questions. Everyone gets a recording after the session, pending any technical difficulties. Then please feel free to ask questions along the way and we'll answer them after the presentation. First off, I'll tell you a little bit about who we are. At EAC, our mission is to transform the way companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We're more than just a value-added reseller for PTC. We've been partnered with them for over 20 years with experts in 22 areas of product development. We're located all over the US with our headquarters in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We offer our customers everything they need for product development, from CAD and simulation software for the full product design process with Creo and ANSYS, software for managing service documentation such as ArborText, Vuforia Studio, and Creo Illustrate, which you'll see a little bit about today, and software for managing product data such as Windchill, ThingWorx Navigate, and our EAC productivity apps. We assist with design and engineering projects and offer webinars, and then also we offer PTC certified training courses for continuous learning. We also implement the industrial Internet of Things and augmented reality into business strategies to jumpstart initiatives around digital transformation and connecting all things in your company. We also offer our customers Formlabs desktop SLA 3D printers at packages starting as low as $34.99. So really, EAC is just the company you need to partner with to get all the technology you need at the forefront to make your team successful so you can continue to do the things that you do best. I'll go ahead and hand things over to Cody so he can get started.
All right, thank you very much. So hi, nice to be with you all today, and I'm going to be going through what Creo Illustrate can help you with and what it offers, as well as how to do some animations inside of that tool. So we're going to start from a high level here and then jump into the tool so you can see what it looks like. Starting off with a little background on why PTC created Creo Illustrate and continues to invest in it. Well, there's a lot of challenges that not just our customers, but general industry faces, starting with the fact that technical illustrations are pretty vital to communicating information to people who are doing service, to customers, whoever it would be, and they're really important for that role. But manual illustrations can be pretty slow for creation. They end up a lot of times doing rework if you're making artistic renditions of something. And when you do that, they're usually not up to date, especially if you're having someone redraw things by hand. When you make a change, depending on how big that change is, you might even just decide it's not worth updating the illustration. But a lot of times, even if it does need to be updated, it's just a slow process and it can't keep up with the design updates. And realistically, you already have this rich and accurate 3D CAD data that you're utilizing for your designs. So you should realistically be able to just also use that for your illustrations and allow that to guide people through whatever process you need. The difficulty with that is that often illustrators don't really know CAD data or understand modeling, so it can be difficult for them to work with those. And when you have that, then you end up with engineers that are creating your technical publication content, and that's not really what their role is to be there for. They're usually there to do their design work or whatever it would be. That's not just creating technical publications. And because this is a serial process, you usually don't start until that design process is done, because again, if there is an update, then it might not be updated at all, especially when you have to go through that manual process to make any of those changes or change what parts are being visualized there. And then again, just might not end up being done depending on how that process flows. And so that is why PTC created Creo Illustrate, to address those issues where you have engineers creating your technical publications and not being updated because it's just not a smooth transition or smooth flow for that. So the capabilities that Creo Illustrate really gives you to help address this is number one, you're going to be able to create illustrations directly from that 3D CAD data. So bring the CAD data in, start reusing it, to your data, you should be able to utilize it. But it's also meant for non-CAD users to be able to do. So you don't necessarily have to have engineers or designers utilizing this tool. Other people can bring the CAD data into here and still be able to work with it. And it is also CAD heterogeneous, so obviously it works well with PTC's Creo files, but it also works just as well with non-native files and neutral files. With that, it then gives you the ability to start doing some of those rich 3D technical illustrations. You can do explode views, you can label your different parts, and it's going to be able to do that automatically as well. And it does that by recognizing that structure that you're importing from the design. It recognizes the parts and says, hey, okay, I know what these need to be labeled as because I have this list of what is actually here. And because of that, then it can do those intelligent callouts and tell you, hey, here's where this is occurring, how many times it's occurring, what object it actually is. It also has an extended library for symbols and graphics. So if you need to show something interacting with that assembly, you can do that, whether that be something like an arrow to show the direction that you should turn something, some hands to showing where you should grab it, or maybe some tools like a hammer or a wrench, or even signs warning for things like electricity or something might be hot. Be able to bring all of those in and add those to the CAD data to really give rich context and visibility to whoever's going to be consuming that information. It also gives you a lot of different options in how you actually want to display that. So you have some different graphical techniques that you can pick between with things like thick or thin lines, different rendering options, setting up sections, doing different lighting. So a lot of options there for how you actually want to display that information. And then of course, we can also always do animations. So I'll be walking you through a little bit more of this as we get into the demonstration, but you have the ability to take that CAD data and move it around, and from those movements create animations that you can then share off with other people or take into things like augmented reality. Now with this, it is also fully integrated with the other PTC systems. So like Windchill, for example, it will work very similarly to how Creo will work with Windchill and allows you to have iteration and version control on all of your technical publications. This also gives a very smooth transition for making sure that things are going to stay updated. If you go through any type of change process in Windchill, for example, you could include this in that change process to make sure that your technical publications are being updated every time there's a major change to your design content. It also gives you the ability to publish out in different formats. So you can start with 3D with what we would call a PVZ file, which is a lightweight representation of CAD data and strips away some of the background information. You also have the ability to do 2D vectors or rasters with things like PDFs, images, and whatever else you might need to publish. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump over to the tool so we can take a look at that and see how it works. Starting off, we're going to bring in some CAD data that we want to work with here inside of Illustrate. And to do that, I can just come up to the file and then choose import and choose to either link or embed the data or bring it from Windchill. So these are some different options that you have. If you're bringing it from Windchill, if you're using Windchill, I would say bring it from Windchill and it's going to recognize that linkage and again, be able to push that information back and forth. If you don't think you're going to be doing any updates, you can always just embed the CAD data into here, or if you want to, but you're not using Windchill, you can link it, which allows you to fairly easily push updates if there have been changes by just pushing in the updated CAD into the same places in the illustrations. So we're going to go ahead and link this for now and start with a Creo View PVZ file. So this is just as I mentioned earlier, a lightweight representation of some of that CAD data, but is geometrically accurate, excuse me. So starting off, we're going to get this front loader in as our first assembly that we're going to be using, but maybe we have some other CAD data that we also want to be bringing in here, some further parts that could be assembled onto this, for example. And to do that, we're just going to say we want to import again and then go ahead and pick our next file. We'll start with an actual PRT file next, so we'll bring in an assembly and bring that onto the back of our loader here. So just translate exactly where we want it to be located in terms of that other assembly that we have here. And just like that, now we've brought in two different, files, no problem. And we're going to bring in one last file here. And in this case, we're going to bring in a neutral file. So we'll just say we want a step file and bring in those arm hydraulics. So now we've brought in a few of our different files, and maybe we want to start getting, working here with our figures. So what a figure is essentially is each figure would be each technical publication that you're publishing. So if you have multiple figures, those are each kind of their own publishable content. So we're going to start creating a new figure where we just want to maybe make some different renderings on this or some different displays, maybe pick some different lighting options for what we would want, then say, what rendering do I want? Do I want some shaded, shaded with edges, maybe some CLR, HLR, whatever it would be. Pick the colors that you want, pick the rendering method that you want, whatever's going to display that information the most usefully for you. Now with this here, you can also choose between orthographic or perspective mode, so easily toggle between those for whatever type of imaging and display you'd like to get. Now you can easily toggle between any of the figures that you have and continue to work on them. And the next figure that we're looking at here is how you would create one of those animations. So to create the animations, you're going to use what's called the step editor, which allows you to break things down into a step-by-step sequence and then play them out together. So to do this, you can see we just go through and create steps and essentially move the geometry and the CAD data as we would like to create each of those animations. So creating a new step here, we're going to be removing this bucket. Maybe I want to get the user's attention, make sure they're focused on the right part. So I'm going to say I want this to flash here, pick the color, and that's going to be the first step. Next, I'll transform it and move it off of there. And it's going to recognize, again, these movements for how it should be taking that animation. And then once we're happy with that movement, maybe if we want to add any notes, any descriptions of what's going on just for ourselves or for the user, we can do that here as well. You also have the ability to edit this in terms of how long you want it to go for. If you want to break down each of those, we'll say sub-steps by when they start and end, you can do that. So if you wanted the flash to occur before the movement, you could say I want the flash to occur for the first 30% of this animation step, and then the movement to occur for the last 70%. But you have a lot of precise control in how that's going to play out. In our case, we're just going to leave them both to go the whole time. And so to see what that looks like, we could preview this sequence and run through all of it. So starting off, we can see we're getting some pins flashing, some movement for them, and them being pulled out. Bring in one of those symbols like the hammer from the library to show that we're going to knock out that peg, and then do the same with the next step here for the other peg. But you can see how through little steps, you can really build out some pretty complex animations by just taking it in that step-by-step process and utilizing some of the effects that you can use in Creo Illustrate to do that. Now, another type of figure that you could create is something more analogous for 2D. If you wanted to do a bomb blowout here, for example, you can do that. You can also add explode lines to show where everything is going to be coming from, or do things like insets to give more detailed views on specific sections. So if we wanted to put an inset here on the teeth, just select where we want that to go. We can even change the rendering method in the inset if you want it to be different from the overall render. Now, as you can see, because we have, again, this geometry, this CAD data, we can rotate around this object, unlike in a 2D view. And because of that, I could set an inset that's going to be out of view from a 2D perspective. So if I want someone to be able to see behind this bucket, well, I can just turn it here, create that inset, and then publish this out in 2D and give people views to areas that they might not normally be able to see otherwise without having to make multiple views, so to speak. Now, as we mentioned earlier, you can also do some automatic callouts here. So it recognizes, again, from that, that bill of materials what you have listed, and then can automatically generate those bubbles for the callouts, as well as give you the item list there at the bottom saying what the name of each of those is, as well as the quantity that they're occurring in inside of this subassembly here. And it is kind of cross-interactive, so it recognizes which parts you're selecting on here, or from the visualization which part you're selecting on. Now that we have a few of these different figures made out, maybe we want to start publishing some of these out for people to view. When we do that, we're going to start by picking whether we want it to be a 3D, a 2D, or an image publication. And then once we choose that type, say, okay, publish, you can get some more options if you'd like to be, a little more detailed specifically there. But in our case, we want to publish this out as a PVZ file again. So that same kind of lightweight publication. And with that, then when we open it up, we can see those different figures, and we published all of them in this case with that PVZ file. So I could toggle between any with the first figure that's just the general view of it, the top level assembly one that we created, the bucket bomb that we just built out with those callouts, even the disassembly. We can look at that here inside of Creo View, and we can play out that disassembly animation just like we saw in Creo Illustrate. So this is a pretty powerful way to be able to communicate information with people by creating these very easy step-by-step animations and showing them the process that they should be going through for that. Now with those animations as well, you can always use those inside of augmented reality with PTC as well. So with our augmented reality tool, Vuforia Studio, you can import those PVZ files and use the animations to show in an augmented reality space those same types of animations and guide people through instructions on how they should be working with something. Now going past just the 3D, we do have some other options here as well. So if we wanted to, we could choose to do a 2D illustration as well, and you have a lot of options there with how you might want to publish that. In our case, we're going to go ahead and publish this as a PVZ again for now, so just a 2D version of that PVZ file. And if we take a look at how that looks compared to our 3D one, we can see some of those same views from the top level and the top level figures that we created. But you can also see it broke down each of the steps here in this process into a 2D image. So you can reuse some of that information from the animations in 2D without having to make any changes to it by allowing it to just publish off what each of those steps is going to look like. And of course, we can also see that bucket bomb blowout in the 2D format as well. Lastly here, if we wanted to go a little bit more specifically, we can publish off some different figures individually, as I mentioned. So in this case, maybe we want to publish this off as a 2D PDF for what this bucket view looks like. So again, we just come up. In this case, we're going to choose Save As for the figure, and we're going to choose what type of 2D image we want. In our case, we're going to pick a PDF here starting off, and then just save that off, pick any of the specific resolution sizes and things that you want for it, and it's going to go ahead and automatically generate that out for us. Now, what's nice with this is, as mentioned earlier, we are able to automatically create those bubbles and those. We can copy that table from the bottom of Creo Illustrate and paste that in here automatically. So without really having to do any work yourself, you can automatically get those callouts as well as a table to designate what those callouts are and the quantities that those are occurring in here in this illustration. Now moving on to one last example here, we could say maybe each of these steps, as we've seen, can be brought out as a 2D visualization, but maybe I want to make a picture of this specifically. So we've just created this last step, so I'm going to go ahead and save this as an image file for here. And just like we saw with the PDF, we can pick the type of image that we want and then set any of the additional details for it for the pixels and resolution. And now we could come into a document that maybe we have some text written out for, saying, what the instructions are around something, and paste these images in here. And of course, just like we saw with the kind of initial placement of the CAD data, we can choose to either just insert this or to link it. And if we do choose to link it, then again, if there's a change to that CAD data, we can push that update into the illustrations very quickly and easily, and then push that update from the image from the illustration down to our technical documentation. And that's really what is the power of Creo Illustrate, to allow you to reuse that CAD data and then give you a lot of options in how you want to do technical illustrations, whether you want to do some 3D illustrations that are interactive that people view in a public or a viewer like Creo View, or if you want to create some 2D illustrations that anyone can print out or view from anywhere, as well as those animations that really give you the best of both worlds, either from that 3D view as you play that out, or a 2D breakdown in that step-by-step process, as well as that ability again to then reutilize that information for augmented reality. And that's what we really want, is for you to have to do less work by being able to reutilize the information that's already yours. You're already spending a lot of time generating that CAD data. You should really be able to get the value out of it by reusing it on the service side as well. So what this really allows you to bring to any team that might want to be utilizing some of those illustrations. If I switch back over to our PowerPoint here, one moment. So coming back to our PowerPoint here. The value that this can bring you is, number one, you can link those illustrations. So again, when there's changes, make sure that there are going to be updates. Make sure that your illustrations aren't out of date and are with the latest current working version of your designs. This also means that you can now have people who are not engineers be able to author this information and still reutilize that engineering information in an environment that's meant for users who are not used to working in a CAD tool. And then that allows you to stop duplicating work, stop recreating, images or artistic renderings of something that you've already created, as well as allow people to maximize your illustration usage because it's going to be accurate, more detailed, and more in depth, as well as allowing you to accelerate that time to market because you're not redoing that work, and it does not have to be, kind of a wait till the end of the design process to start building these, because you don't have to worry about doing that rework. Start creating your illustrations early. If there are changes, easily push those downstream so that you're not waiting around at the end to get those done. And when you have, earlier, nicer illustrations, makes your customers more happy, easier for them to work with your products or your service technicians as well, to be able to have better information guiding them through that. With that, I'll go ahead and pass things back off.
Great. I don't see any questions that anyone's put in, but thank you so much, Cody, for presenting. I want everyone to know that we are running a promotion until the end of March. You can get 50% off of these Creo extensions on this slide with the purchase of a new Creo license. The link to this promotion will be in the email I